One ship, just one, held the power to unleash more drones than Ukraine had destroyed in an entire year. 25,000 explosive-laden UAVs, thousands of rockets, and a floating arsenal that could bend the balance of war overnight. And yet, within 40 minutes, that ship was gone, silent, sinking, and irrecoverable. How? The answer lies in a coordinated strike that turned stealth drones into precision hammers, targeting every vulnerable point of the vessel in a synchronized rhythm of destruction. The story of how Port Olia 4 went down reveals just how fragile safe waters really are. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. A cargo vessel sat motionless in the waters of the Vuhler-Don Canal, quiet, unassuming, flying the flag of North Korea. It looked like any other freighter making a slow run through the Caspian network. On the horizon, nothing about it demanded attention. No escorts, no visible cranes in action, no shuffled containers giving away activity. To the eye of any observer, Port Olia 4 could have been one of hundreds of bulk carriers that pass anchor points like these every year. What no one would guess was that below deck, layered across its compartments, lay machinery capable of changing a front line in weeks, if not days. The weight hidden inside the hull was staggering. Thousands of wooden crates packed tight against each other carried avionics modules stacked in foam rigging, navigation units still in insulated wrappings, gyroscopes and accelerometer systems boxed like consumer electronics, and bundles of sealed components that read outwardly as industrial motor parts. It was not commercial cargo. The manifest, pieced together later by intercepted intelligence, revealed nearly 5,000 tons of war material, distributed not as one large package, but as thousands of small, concealable shipments inside steel containers. Among the assembly line of crates were the spine and nervous system of 25,000 Shahed-type drones. Each of those drones, once complete, carried a 40-kilogram high-explosive charge. Multiply that load 250,000 times, and nearly 1,000 tons of raw explosive energy was sitting inside the black-painted hull. From a distance, the ship was sluggish, engines idling, appearing to wait for a slot. But calling it a cargo vessel was misleading. Port Olia 4 was in truth a floating warehouse designed to feed the war machine. Its decks and holds were not just moving goods, they were transporting a year's worth of battlefield endurance. To understand the scale, consider this. Ukraine destroyed roughly the same number of drones in 12 months of concentrated defense. One vessel, if it reached its offload in working order, would effectively reset the entire cost imposed by months of countermeasures. There was only one problem. For Ukraine, striking a target in the Caspian seemed impossible. No frigates, no submarine flotillas, no maps of patrol capability inside that semi-closed sea. The access routes were locked. For decades, nations considered its waters shielded against exterior interference. The freighter was parked there as if geography itself guaranteed its immune status. This was the dilemma. Knowing the target had to be destroyed, but without a conventional navy to reach it. Intelligence began filling gaps. Synthetic aperture satellite radar showed Port Olia 4 stationary for days. Its automatic identification system signals, normally public for shipping traffic, had gone dark. Radio silence suggested either concealment or deliberate ignorance. For analysts watching from afar, it created a fleeting moment that did not often occur in that region. A weapons shipment unguarded, unescorted, not in transit but exposed. No patrol vessels shadowed her, no planes cycled above her track. She was a still target in waters usually considered unreachable. So what looked like an impenetrable safe zone on a map was something else in reality. A calculated risk by the operators of that vessel, one that bet heavily on the assumption Ukraine could not project force across those waters. The intelligence picture proved they had guessed wrong. Anchored, unsignaled, and still loaded, Port Olia 4 was no longer moving cargo between ports. She was a target waiting in place, and time was running against her crew. But Ukraine had more than information. The true challenge came next, figuring out how to sink a ship inside a landlocked sea with nothing but innovation at hand. Ukraine had nothing resembling a navy in the Caspian. No destroyers, no submarines, no large surface vessels to push into that inland sea. Instead, they built something altogether different, an invisible fleet of drones able to cross hundreds of miles of water without being detected. At the center of this plan was a machine few outside defense circles had ever heard of, the UJ-26ER, shaped with minimal radar signature and tuned for distance. Each drone carried an 88-pound explosive yield equivalent to TNT. High-precision navigation allowed them to remain accurate even when jamming tried to break control. Hybrid systems, blending satellite guidance with inertial backups, made them resistant to blackout zones. This wasn't just an aircraft, it was a precision knife in the air, designed to puncture rather than overwhelm. 14 of these drones slipped into the basin, but the question was stark. Could such a small number truly defeat a hardened vessel? The Port Olia 4 was more than a freighter. The crew on board knew they were transporting volatile cargo, and they carried countermeasures intended to ward off attacks. Small-caliber defensive weapons, infrared decoys, even onboard jammers designed to disrupt incoming guidance. All of it had been quietly installed on what looked like an ordinary North Korean flag carrier. For Ukraine, betting 14 drones against all those layers posed a risk as high as any surface battle. If even half were destroyed before release, the mission would falter. Failure would not just mean wasted hardware, it would mean confirming to Russia that the Caspian was untouchable. The solution came from careful tailoring. Each drone was wired for a specific weakness in the ship. Half carried fragmentation warheads designed to shower small steel shards at extreme velocity into ventilation shafts and lightly armored sections of the hull. These weren't meant to sink instantly, but to start fires, cut power, and eliminate vital circulation. Others carried semi-penetrator charges, hardened to pierce beams and structural plates before detonating. On detonation, girders that supported sections of the deck could fracture and bend, setting off a chain of stress failures inside the vessel's skeleton. A third group carried delayed fuses, designed for machinery and energy compartments. These waited precious fractions of a second before detonation, so the charge exploded deeper inside, destroying pumps, circuit lines, and the auxiliary systems critical for damage control. And then there were two whose loadout looked different. No explosives at all, only signal relay equipment. Their mission was silent yet essential. Keep the swarm speaking across the span of the Caspian, bridging the gap between operators and warheads. The synchronization made the plan viable. Multiple approaches formed, with some drones skimming just feet above the waterline, hiding beneath radar horizons, while others climbed high as invisible nodes, whispering instructions to the rest. The ship was not faced with one wave, but several, closing from different compass points. Crossing fields made the chance of interception lower. By the time defenders sighted one approach, others were minutes from impact elsewhere. Ukrainian controllers coordinated not to attack all at once, but in carefully spaced strikes that would cripple countermeasures one by one. At 10:28 a.m. local time, the opening blow landed. A drone slammed into the stern ventilation shaft, its fragmentation warhead bursting in confined metal flues. Fireball and shrapnel blew upward, feeding flame into tucked-away fuel lines. Pumps switched to emergency flow, but the heat and ruptured pipes drained efficiency. Below deck, water sloshed into compartments as failed seals burst under pressure. Minutes later, another drone hit midships, collapsing antenna arrays and leaving the bridge blind and cracked open. Crews scrambled, jammers faltered, and coordination dissolved. The strike on Port Olia 4 was more than the destruction of cargo. It was a warning. It showed that no sea, not even a closed one, is safe when drones can fly hundreds of miles and hit targets with precision. Traditional defenses built for surface fleets or patrol crafts suddenly mean less when an unmanned swarm can bypass them. That forces new thinking about maritime security, logistics, and how wars are supplied on water routes once thought untouchable. If 14 drones can erase 25,000 weapon kits in under an hour, what happens when the next arsenal sails into protected waters?